Yes, everybody, welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our rapidly growing YouTube channel on the race for 11,000 subscribers. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones and AJ, here for another podcast on another returner for the Tar Heels. And this time it's Leaky Black, fifth-year senior, announced he's coming back for his fifth year with the Tar Heels. You can probably tell by as quickly as this podcast came out, and the fact that we're wearing similar outfits to what we wore in another podcast we did, that this is something that we kind of saw coming for a little bit. I think it's something that a lot of Carolina fans probably expected. If you follow the team like we do and you listen to the press conferences, there's one press conference in particular that I think every media member left that press conference like, okay, yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say based on what Leaky just said that there's no doubt in his mind that he's coming back for his fifth year. So AJ, just real quickly before we dive into a little bit more specifics about it, what are your kind of initial thoughts about Leaky returning? Because like I said, I know it's not a surprise for us. It may be a surprise to some Carolina fans, but I know for most people in the media, I think this is something that we all kind of expected to happen. But I think it's positive news for the Tar Heels as well.
Well, the night you're referencing, I almost got him.
You did. It was your question.
He was coming back. That was my follow-up. The follow-up is always the better one than the initial question is. I need to go watch that clip. Young budding journalists should learn. It's always the follow-up question that usually gets you the goods, right?
The juicy stuff, yeah.
Well, and knowing, being sourced there afterward. And Hubert didn't make any bones about it. He didn't run from me. He said it on his radio show, and he may have said it with us when we had him on a Zoom day before a game or something, that absolutely, if Leaky wanted to come back, they would make room for him. Now, Leaky does count against the 13 scholarship, so there is some roster management that has to take place. But for Leaky, let's remember, it's not just a guy having a fifth year. He didn't play a lot his freshman year. He got hurt at Georgia Tech, and I'll never forget seeing him. Georgia Tech, it's not a great setup. You have to do a lot of stairs. The teams have to do stairwells. Media has to do stairwells, get down to the locker room, that kind of thing. And there's a couple different sets of stairs that you go down to get down to the locker room. And we went down there. This is pre-COVID when we were allowed to go in the locker room, right? We're going down to the locker room after their win at Georgia Tech in, mid-late January in 19. And I saw Leaky's mom, and he was just kind of hobbling up with crutches because he got hurt that night. He had to actually go up like little 5 steps or something like that. I remember seeing her help him up, and we didn't see him again for like 6 weeks. And he played a little bit in the postseason, just a minute here, a minute there, I think, just to kind of get in and get a taste. But he didn't really have a lot in the freshman year. So I would like to look at this as his redshirt senior year. And it makes sense. Some people say, well, I don't want guys that are going to play 175 games. The COVID rule does that. For Leaky, he didn't play a lot that first year, so this will really be his 4th full season. So I think it's a great move on his part because he wants to be a part of this. There are some guys in this program who are absolutely program guys. Leaky loves North Carolina. He's always loved North Carolina. He loves being a Tar Heel. He loves running out of that tunnel and loves playing for the standard that dangles above with the jerseys and the banners and all that kind of stuff. And his family loves that too. So if he had an opportunity to be a part of it for one more year, why not take advantage of it, especially given the fact that his game grew this past year. Now, when that press conference occurred and he sort of hinted, he was in a stretch where he was kind of scoring and he was really elevating his shooting percentage and that kind of things. Now, after the Syracuse game, he didn't hit another 3 until the Duke game in the Final Four. He hit 2 that night, though. And we have a piece prepared that we've run about the 12 best individual performances of the season. And we included Leaky's performance against Duke that night because of the job he did against A.J. Griffin. That was the second time in a month he did that to A.J. Griffin, but he did it to everybody. And I'll tell you what, I go back to the ACC tournament game in Brooklyn against Virginia. I was sitting courtside right on the court, and I'm looking out there watching Leaky get down in a defensive stance on Kihei Clark. And at that moment, I'm like, man, he might be the most balanced with the widest range defensive player Carolina's had. And that's a mouthful because they've had some really good ones. Danny Green was phenomenal. Theo was phenomenal. JB Tokoto was a pretty good defensive player, right? But Leaky can go from a Kihei Clark to a Paulo Banchero or someone like that. Now, I know Brady did a little bit better job against Paulo than Leaky did, but I'm just using that as an example. He could go from a 1 to a 4 and everything in between. His defense the second half of the year when they needed shutdown guys was phenomenal. The Syracuse game at home that they won, that was a crucial game. It was an exhale game for these kids. They won that game like, okay, maybe we're going to be in the tournament now. He totally screwed with Buddy Behi most of that game.
Oh, yeah.
So what's his face went off for like crazy for 36 points. Hubert switched him over there. Hubert switched him over on him for a couple of series, threw him off, went back and actually forced a turnover on an inbound, went back to Buddy. Carolina wins the game. They close him out in overtime. So Leaky is a phenomenal defensive player, and he has improved his game offensively enough where he fits in with the rest of the guys. He fits in with what Hubert wants to do. So we talk about when we did our Armando podcast, as we do these preparing for what's happening, we talked about all the different basketball and UNC's school-related life boxes that Armando checks by coming back. Leaky checks all the same boxes, and he's going to earn some NIL money too. So he's going to earn some NIL money. I think Leaky went from being a criticized player, which happens when you play at a blue blood, to being a loved player. And coming back another year, people are going to love him even more. It's going to raise his stock. We're talking about that with college athletes now because it's a sign of the times and there's nothing wrong with it. More power to him. Go make as much as you can, young man. And it's going to be good to see him come back because you know how much I like Leaky. You know how much I enjoy talking to him because he's refreshing. He's honest. He's articulate. He's thoughtful. He knows the game. He's one of those guys that while I'm covering him in college, I can see down the road him coaching someday. Oh, yeah. I think Leaky got that in him. So personally, I think it's great because I look forward to having another year of interviews with Leaky Black.
Yeah. And real quickly to ask you this, I mean, how valuable with Armando already announcing he's returning. That's just a 4th-year senior. And you got a 5th-year guy, Leaky, coming back. I mean, this team is as experienced as it gets. And it was already a very talented team making a national championship run last year. So what about his experience? I mean, I know he's a great defender and he's played a lot of games, but I think just that leadership that he brings to that locker room is incredibly valuable alongside a guy like Bacot.
Old teams win championships.
Yep. Yes, they do.
Kansas has been through its one and done stuff, but it wasn't rolling a bunch of one and dones out there.
No, they had a lot of experienced guys.
They had, I made a comment when we did a football podcast the other day about the offensive line. Like most of those offensive linemen for North Carolina, they're going to get on the field. Like they voted twice.
Yeah.
And if you have guys that have voted a couple of times, it's not a terrible thing, or guys that could vote a couple of times. When you have guys that have been legal to drink for a couple of years and they're on your roster in college, there's a tremendous value there.
I mean, 2017, looking back, that was an experience.
Well, all of them were.
Yeah.
That have won titles at North Carolina. So Kansas was experienced this year. Baylor was experienced last year. Virginia in 19, very experienced. Guys that had taken their lumps, and guys that had worked their way through, guys that persevered, guys that were smart and played for what was on front of the jersey. Those Virginia kids had that kind of thing going for them. This Carolina team has there's a lot of redemption stuff that happens in this program's history. And I know we're not going to go on a tangent on this, but let me just throw this out there very quickly. 81, they lose the national championship game to Indiana. The day that Reagan was shot, by the way, game almost wasn't played.
Yeah.
In 93, they began that year when Dean puts a picture of the Superdome in everybody's locker room. I wonder where Hubert got that idea last year.
Yeah, I know, right? Wasn't original.
But that was following Duke winning back-to-back titles. And Carolina's foundation is being the preeminent program in the ACC, the top dog. They've been knocked from that perch. Dean's like, So they got a form of redemption in 93 by winning it. In 05, the redemption was what so many of those guys had been through under the previous regime. And it was a nightmare for some of them. Without getting into detail, 05 was a form of redemption for them, and also for a coach who lost it in 03 with his prior program that he ran. He needed a form of redemption too in the eyes of a lot of people. 09, they got redemption for 40-12 against Kansas the year before. 17, they got redemption for Chris Jenkins and shot at the buzzer. So this coming year, they have an opportunity at redemption again. Sometimes history has a way of repeating itself, and it happens more often than people realize in sports. So Carolina has that opportunity to write an interesting script that many of us have penned before. And Leaky coming back is a big part of that because there's one absolute guarantee that North Carolina will have next year. A terrific, or might I even use the word great? I'm not Sparky Anderson. I don't like to throw the word great out a lot, but he is a great defender at the college level. They will have that now.
Yeah, big time news for the Tar Heels, and I'm sure Carolina fans are excited about it too. If you are a Carolina fan watching this one, which I'm assuming all of you are, go ahead and give this video a like if you're excited about the news that Leaky Black is returning for his 5th year at North Carolina. All right, AJ, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. I've been Jacob Turner.
That's good.
He's been Andrew Jones. You guys know the drill. Make sure you share it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well. We're on the race for 11,000 subscribers, so we're trying to hit that mark. Hopefully we'll get there sooner rather than later. Again, I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.
Thanks.